Well, it sounds like you're doing amazing things there. All I can say is that it's a conversation that has yet to be had. I mean, I do get occasional opportunities to speak with government politicians. In Australia, I think we've been working on this a lot. It's since about 2002, having things like the intergenerational report, which actually officially identified and acknowledged these issues, and state governments and local governments are empowered to deal with population ageing, and it's a national conversation. I think all I'm really saying is that you can do it, but you need that collective voice. So it's no good just one of you, one council thinking, oh, you know, we're declining or whatever. It is happening everywhere. You can, you know, if you could put it on a time series photograph, you'd see one after the other region going through it. So it's about getting your collective voice, I think, and trying to make the government see that you know this and they need to know it too. And you're absolutely right. You know, when I arrived back and I saw, was it Dunedin somewhere, they were losing all those engineers from that, where they were making trains and so on, I thought, goodbye to that area. You see it everywhere. Every time something closes, the population goes down. But today, it's not going to turn around and go back because of the issues I've outlined. In Australia, they say that governments should stay out of the bedrooms of the population. I suspect that New Zealand government would leap to the same thing, because when you start talking about a population policy, it usually comes down to fertility rates and so on, as opposed to migration. But I do think that there used to be a population monitoring group, and it seems crazy now that we're at this stage of population ageing really unfolding, crashing on our shore, that we don't have such a body and we don't have that conversation happening. So I don't know what a population policy itself would look like, but it should take account of the regional diversity, the ending of growth. You know, there's the business lobby demanding increased migration to offset certain skill shortages and so on, but of course they're nearly all going to go to Auckland, they're not going to go somewhere else. So would a policy say that you come to New Zealand? I think there's actually already extra points that you get if you do go somewhere else, but then you need the jobs to go to. It's a constellation of issues. I would just like to see some government discussion on it, because, you know, what's the closest we get is John Key saying, we will not raise the age at which you access retirement pension. That's it in terms of population issues that are being discussed. So we need to have the conversation, and then I think we could move toward some type of policy principles anyway. First, New Zealand, Australia, Canada and the United States have pretty well had the migration pool to themselves over the past half century. We are now competing with the countries that used to send us the migrants, you know, the ageing Greece and Italy and so on. So our ability to keep getting large numbers is going to diminish, and that's one of the points that the United Nations publication puts out. Secondly, most of the migrants are going to come from developing countries, and there will be a point at which there will be political backlash, and we see that in various areas once certain populations seem to fit. There's a perception that they're taking over. Now, I should jump right in here and say I'm pro-migration, and I think you know, a wonderful rainbow population would be a wonderful thing to have. But the speed at which it's happening, because the base population of New Zealand isn't growing, European population has stopped growing. The Asian population accounted for 85% of Auckland City's growth over the past 10 years. Accounted for about 62, I think, % of the Auckland region's growth. These are quite massive changes, and, you know, you also have to have an education of the population to go along with it, so that people don't feel like they're being invaded, but welcome and incorporating those new people into the population. But it will change the population massively. Our ethnic composition will change massively. And this will also have challenges for Māori, because already there are more young Asian 20 to 24-year-olds in New Zealand than Māori 20 to 24-year-olds. The problem is with the retirement, accessing age pension at 65 indicates strongly that that is retirement age, and that message goes through to employers. But as this population ageing unfolds, you will have to look at retaining your older workers and finding ways to ensure that is a healthy, longer working life as well. I ran a national survey in Australia of Australian baby boomers' retirement intentions, and we found over half intend to work on until they're 70. And I guess I won't ask for hands up, but I'm planning to work on until I'm 70. But I don't want to work at the same rate or pace that I do now. So we need employers to make those changes. And at the moment, as you indicate, a lot of them don't even really want to know. But it's because they don't know the demography. They just keep thinking that they're not attracting young people, and they don't realise they just didn't get born and they haven't been coming at them for the last 18 years. So us older workers are going to be the workforce of the future as well, fortunately augmented by our young Māori population.
No, I wouldn't. I think it creates an even more compelling story as to how you collaborate as a region to deal with those challenges. I think there's a fantastic opportunity for greater collaboration across all of the districts, and to develop a long-term economic development strategy for the region, and to be aligned around delivering that, so that you can tell a compelling story not only to the communities that you have today and the opportunities that they will have in a growing, prosperous region, but also to those other people that might be attracted to your region. But if you can't pull together that compelling story, people will look elsewhere. And that's the opportunity in front of you. Agree your long-term plan, agree your economic development strategy, make sure from an infrastructure point of view you've got the infrastructure necessary to support that, and get in behind funding that on a collective basis. Just in terms of the comments on the infrastructure for Auckland, notwithstanding that compact city that you mentioned, just if you look at transport alone, the Auckland plan anticipates another $30 billion worth of investment over the next 30 years. That's on top of the current level of investment. That's another $1 billion a year on top of existing revenue sources to be able to support that transport investment. So that region is looking very aggressively at alternative funding methods. It's very hard to have that conversation if you are divided. It's very hard to get agreement about big change if you are divided. And that was the thing that held Auckland back in the past. Because even if you started to build some consensus around some issues, there was always a community leader or a mayor who could rally that contrary view, and you'd end up with division and lack of direction. So I think these challenges around population and demographics, and in fact the fundamental challenges we face around jobs, are all the more compelling reason why we've got to start to work more collaboratively and optimise everything we do.
Absolutely. See, once you know what your age structure is, your local age structure, and local being also the organisation that you're working in, you can look across it and see where you actually need people. That there is just going to be such a feeding frenzy for young people. The school leaver population is going to decline by something nationally by something like 15,000 over the next 10 years, just increasing each year. Every year from now on, a larger cohort of the baby boomers will reach retirement age and move out, and every year for the next 19 years, a smaller cohort will come in to take their place. Right? So you've got massive outflows at the top, diminishing numbers coming in, and actually in the middle, that bite in the age structure that I just pointed out briefly, that is quite glaring at national level. So in between you, people leaving the labour market, the fewer ones coming in, you've got this big hole in the age structure. It's going to cause a vacuum. And to go back to the point that came from over here, it's actually been a bit hard to sell the story since the global economic crisis has unfolded, because everybody's being very careful about taking on people. But when that fog lifts, you will not find sufficient young people around to, meet your needs. So it's a bit like the armed forces, the model that they use. You need to get out there into the schools and say, we need young people in local government. Actually, they used to do that in Tasmania. We need young people in local government, and actually start looking at helping them through even their university training, or through the specific training that you want them to have, WinTech or something like that. Because we can't afford the mismatch that we've had with, we've got people with skills who can't get jobs, we've got people with jobs who can't find people to work in them. As we go forward, we can't afford to waste one person. So we've got to figure out what we need, what are our mission critical skills that we need in order to keep our businesses going, and make sure that we recruit early. It's not like that bucket of potential employers that you used to have.
Just in terms of the provision of infrastructure services, one of the points I made was the importance of scale, and the ability of scale to then allow specialisation of staff and technical expertise. And that creates opportunities for people in New Zealand that otherwise would have to go to other markets to get those opportunities. We've got a lot of young engineers that are heading off to Australia and other parts of the world. There's an infrastructure crisis across the globe. Many of our infrastructure that was built in the 1950s, 60s, or even some of it goes back to the early 1900s is well aged and needs replacement, and that's a global issue. So if we want to attract and retain those talented young individuals in our communities, we've got to give them the opportunities, and that's a way that we can do it.